What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're going short track racing once again this weekend at Martinsville Speedway for the Cookout 400 that'll take place on Sunday, April 7th around 3 p.m. Eastern. And like I said last week for Richmond, short flat tracks tend to not be that great in this new car. And I'm expecting it to not be that great once again this weekend at Martinsville, but I am perfectly fine with boring races because they tend to be better for DFS and betting purposes, so I say bring it on. But anyway, this happens to be your first time here. What's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sundays, planning for around noon. So be there, be square. It's always a good time. And really quick, I do got to give a shout out to my man C-Gen for being the closest one to Truex's laps led last week. And if you want to win this weekend, tell me who you think is going to score the most fantasy points and how many. The winner will get a cash prize. Just make sure you comment before the race. If you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and let's dive right into it. All right, so let's talk some strategy here at Martinsville. We are at the paperclip. It's a half-mile in length, and it's pretty unique. You can obviously look at all the short flat tracks for some comparisons, but it does have its own uniqueness to it. Other than that, though, we have 400 laps. Used to be 500. They took 100 laps from us, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess. Really want to follow the leader for that long. I don't mind either way. But all that tells us is that we're going to have very similar roster construction to last weekend. For example, Chris Rebel was a fantastic projection play, and he still ended up being a very good play. He's got some fast laps and one of the best cars in the field last weekend, but he still did not outscore, even finishing 6th, starting all the way back in nearly 30th, did not outscore guys like Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr. because even though they started up front and there's a lower floor with them, if they're able to go out there, dominate, lead laps, and get that dominator point cushion, as long as they are finishing high, they're going to pour in a ton of points. So you have to keep that in mind. So dominators needs to be imprinted in your brain once again this weekend. So whatever you did for Richmond, not saying the same exact plays, but the roster construction, you can apply it right here to Martinsville. Now, I am recording this portion before practice and qualifying, but I imagine that passing isn't going to exactly be the easiest thing in the world. So I would say track position is going to be decently important. But if there is some good place differential plays that just happen to not qualify well, but had decent speed in practice, or just really good guys at short flat tracks in general, they're going to be playable, but just know that track position will be key this week. And I will say, with this being a pretty unique track, the guys that have good track history here tend to be good here more often than not. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I do have to mention one thing first, and that is, of course, if you want to join the community over on Patreon, link is down below in the description for that. Access to the projections, my entire NASCAR model, which is all color-coded nice and neat, so it's really easy to follow. The betting model, which fantastic start to the season. Nailed Denny Hamlin last week after qualifying, so we're like at over 100% ROI. That will not continue at that rate, but it's been a good start so far. In my article, breaking down the entire slate from a perspective of cash games, tournaments, or betting, cheat sheets, my optimizer, ownership projections. And I did start posting projections for Xfinity and the Truck Series, which has been going pretty well so far. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check it out. I do cover baseball every single day as well, if that is your cup of tea. So if you want to check it out, you'll find it. Link can be found down below. And as you all know, I'm a partner of Stochastic, and they did launch their NASCAR Sims tool amongst other sports. But you can simulate the entire slate beforehand, see which drivers are popping with the most ROI, which lineups look the best to take down tournaments. You can upload your own projections, use mine or the ones already preset on the site, and have at it. If you want to check it out, you know where to find it. Link can be found down below. Make sure you tell them I sent you. All right, so practice and qualifying just ended a few moments ago, so this is going to be my first run through the entire slate with you all. Then I'll have the more updated thoughts on the Patreon and the live stream tomorrow. So let's go through this together for the first time. And we'll start with the 10-figure range. And these are not the most up-to-date odds. I am sure they're going to change quite a bit. And kind of like last week, I think at the stagger groups once again for practice, because if we look at the overall practice numbers, they're probably not going to tell the full-on story. So if we look at the practice results here, I highlighted group A in yellow, and it seemed like they were faster overall. As you can see, they pretty much dominate the top half of this. If we sort this by their overall averages based off the 1 through 30 lap runs, as you can see, they're pretty much dominating that. Because if you think Corey LaJoie is going to be the 4th fastest car on the track tomorrow, I think you would be highly mistaken. So that's something to keep in mind. So if we're looking at the best cars in Group A, just based off the entire averages, I mean, you're looking at guys like Byron, Bud Wallace, Alex Bowman, and that's obviously if you're including 1 5-lap runs, which I'm not always super excited to do. If you sorted that by 20 lap, it's going to change a little bit. So it just depends on what you're looking at completely. But if you're looking at Group B, their numbers are going to be a little bit slower overall, but Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson look like the 2 best cars overall, especially when you're looking at the 25, 30 lap runs, which is what's going to be important. Chase Elliott looked pretty strong, Ty Gibbs as well. So just something to keep in mind when we're going through this. I'm going to try to remember who is in each group, but it might be a little bit confusing. But let's start top with the 2 big dogs here, Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. We'll start with Denny Hamlin here first, most expensive on both sites. He's going to be starting in 8th. And I'll tell you right now, if I could play Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson in the same lab, that looks like something I would really want to do, because it looked like they had the 2 best cars, as they were 1st and 2nd in the longest runs in practice, and hard to argue against either. So for Kyle Larson, he's on the pole. He's in the best spot to lead laps early on. He's going to have the best pit stall. I feel like we're going to see him do pretty similar to what we saw at Richmond. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different track, but it's a short flat track. He used that track position in his advantage, got all the dominator points, and put together a very strong finish. So I think Kyle Larson is firmly in play. If you are playing cash games, he would be my starting point. Denny Hamlin, also like a ton. He loves short flat tracks. Excellent at Martinsville, actually averaging the most dominator points here over the past 6 races. And if you expand this to the next gen era, both these guys just incredible at short flat tracks. So Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson look like the 2 best options here up top. And then the problem is we still have other really good guys here. You have Martin Truex Jr. starting in 4th. You have Ryan Blaney starting in 9th, and Christopher Bell starting in 20th. And all these guys are going to be contenders in this race, and that's why they're priced up here. But for a track like this, these are the kind of guys you have to jam in your lineups. I saw some comments last week about people complaining about playing Justin Haley, and while it wasn't an amazing run from him, he still got about 15 points, and he allowed you to fit in those guys up top. Like, those guys don't matter. If you nail your dominators and they get the dominator points, it's fine. If you just have a guy that's down low and he survives the race, gets you 15, 20 points, if it allows you to get in those drivers that score 100 plus points, that is all you need. So I would try to highly recommend trying to get at least 2 of these guys in this 10-figure range in your builds. I think Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Blaney will be the tournament options, because I think Denny Hamlin and Larson will be the preferred ways to go. But I'm saying this before I have done any projections or ownership projections. With Martin Truex Jr. dominating last week and him being a little bit cheaper, maybe he gets the slight edge over Denny Hamlin, but I think it will be very close. But Larson will be my cash game starting point, and then guys like Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., very similar last week, will be the GPP options off of him. Ryan Blaney, awful week last weekend, but he historically does struggle here at Richmond, but over at Martinsville, he tends to be a lot better. Had one of the better long run cars in Group A, and if you're looking at his past 4 races here at Martinsville, the next gen era, as you can see, elite numbers overall. Has a win, won the most recent race here, 3 top 5s and 4 opportunities in the top 10 every single time. Some of the most dominant points, the second most fast laps, and the best average finish. So I don't really see any reason not to like Ryan Blaney here. I did bet on him earlier in the week at plus 800 to win the race. Feel like that's probably not going to change much here. Starting inside the top 10, he's going to have decent track position, and as you can see, amazing at short flat track. So I would put him in that Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. category as being a tournament play, although he's probably a step below them just because I love what I've seen out of the Toyota so far at the short flat tracks. And then Kyle Larson will be tough to beat as well. Then Christopher Bell, he's going to be kind of a similar play to last week. It's kind of funny because I feel like I'm just saying the same thing as I did at Richmond. But once again, he finds himself as the guy in the 5-figure range who is not in the best spot to dominate, but he can certainly work his way to the front and be a threat to dominate. And honestly, if he doesn't get that speeding penalty late last week, I wouldn't have been surprised if he actually got up to the very front and won the race, because he was putting down some really good lap times over the course of a long run. So Bell, I'm kind of viewing him as the same play as last week, although he's not going to offer you as much place differential upside, so I'm not as inclined to play him over some of these early dominators. Dropping in the 9K range, we have William Byron, $9,800, and kind of finds himself in that Christopher Bell range where he should be able to move up. Did have a fast car in Group A. Problem is, I don't think he's going to be able to get up front and dominate. I feel like Christopher Bell, if I had to pick between the two, I would prefer him, although he's just a little bit more expensive. $1,000 more over on FanDuel, so maybe you get to a little bit more Byron on FanDuel instead of DraftKings. But either way, I'd slightly prefer Bell over these two. Byron has won here before, and the Hendrick cars do look really good this week, but if I had to pick, I go with the Toyota here. Joey Logano, $9,500. He's starting in 6th. If you look at his practice times, they are a bit slow, but he was in that second group, and I believe he was a top 5, top 6 car if you look at the overall averages in Group B, so I think he'll be fine. And him and Ryan Blaney just excellent here at Martinsville. And as I said earlier, this is a pretty unique track, and the guys that are good here just tend to be good here most of the time. And as you can see in a 4-race sample size in the next gen era, 4th in his average finish, which is second best only to his teammate Ryan Blaney. 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s. So some pretty identical numbers there. Just hasn't dominated as much as his teammate, but both those guys find themselves as decent tournament plays. But with Logano, you get him at a $1,000 discount, and ran very well last week at Richmond, which was nice to see because he has been horrible to start the year. Brad Keselowski, $9,200, starting in 13th, way back when. I believe he led over 450 laps in a 500 lap race here at Martinsville. Obviously, a lot of things have changed. He's no longer with Team Penske, but does have a top 5 finish here at Martinsville. If you're looking at his practice speeds, obviously not the best, was in the second group. At least I hope so. Yeah, he was in the second group, but these times are still very, very bad. Which, you know, some of these veteran drivers, I try not to get too worried about the practice times, but honestly, I just don't see myself getting to too much Brad here. We'll see how the projections lay out, but it probably won't be the most amazing thing in the world. But I don't think he's going to be bad as these practice times. It's just going to be a matter of being able to afford guys in the 9K range, because if you're doubling up in this 5-figure range, I just don't think these guys will be able to populate as much unless they showed a lot of place differential, which none of them do. Ty Gibbs, same boat as Brad Keselowski, looked a little bit better in practice than he was in that second group. So obviously the practice speeds come more better. But I don't think that we should be out on Ty Gibbs. I know it was a pretty mediocre race last weekend, but the prices come back down. He's starting in 15th, and the practice speeds didn't look too bad for the group he was in. So I guess I'll have a slight lean on Ty Gibbs if we had to pick between him or Brad Keselowski, but I don't think they're going to be too much different. Chase Elliott starting us off in the 8K range. Maybe he's back this week. He's starting in third, had a good finish last week as well. But these Hendrick cars, they look fast, they look good. If you saw their special anniversary paint schemes, all like in the red, looks very nice. But Elliott had some of the best numbers overall in his group of practice. Top 3 in qualifying, so he's gonna have good track position. I wouldn't be surprised if he could stay within the top 5 in the majority of the day, pick up fast laps, and if he gets up front, this is a really low price tag for a potential dominator in a 400 lap race. So I think Chase Elliott's an excellent tournament play. Chris Buescher, 8,600. He's starting in 30th, and more people want to play Chris Buescher. Power to them, but I feel like Chase Elliott just offers us more upside in tournaments. Not saying Chris Buescher's a bad play. I certainly think he'll be able to move up, starting in 30th. He was in that first group though, so maybe he's like a 15th, 20th place car in this race, but that's not the worst day in the world if you're talking about cash games. But in tournaments, I will go with Chase Elliott here. Tyler Reddick, $8,500, starting in 19th. I just don't typically like him at these shorter flat tracks. Just doesn't really run that well. Average running position of 19th here at Martinsville in the next gen era. Average finish of 25th. Only one top 20 finish, and as you can see across the board, not that great. I play him at Phoenix, and that's really the only short flat track I have much interest for Tyler Reddick. Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, two guys that usually a little bit more expensive, and if you see them at this price point, you'd be pretty interested. But honestly, I'm not sure if I even want to play them. Because Chastain starting in 12th, and if you're looking at his practice speeds, they were pretty poor across the board. And I want to say he was in Group 1, which makes it even worse. Because, yeah, highlighted in yellow here. Fired off a little bit better, but man, these long run speeds, definitely not that great. I might have to look into them a little bit more and see what happened. But he just did not look that fast overall, so I don't really see too much reason to want to play Ross here. And Kyle Busch, I mean, RCR has just been so terrible with these short flat tracks, but it's crazy to see him at this price tag of only $8,100. But even then, I am still not super excited about it. 4 race sample size in the next era for him. Average finish of 21st, running position of 23rd, one top 10, only one top 20. If you increase the sample size, it gets a little bit better, around 15th place and some other good finishes mixed in. But man, I'm a little bit nervous about wanting to play Kyle Busch here because I just think it's very likely he moves back. Practice speeds weren't that amazing. Qualified well, but I'm still going to have my hesitation even though he's just so cheap this week. I feel like at this price, though, he'll still populate into some lineups, but if I'm playing like a single entry, he's not someone I am flocking to. 7K range. Bunch of good tournament plays here because I love SHR at short flat tracks, and Bowman looked fast, and Bubba Wallace looked fast in practice. So I think this is a really good range here. So we'll start with Bowman, starting in 10th. Like I said, all the Hendrick cars look pretty fast this week. He was in Group A, so these numbers are probably a bit inflated. 3-race sample size here at Martinsville in the next-gen era. Nothing too spectacular, but I know the Richmond result wasn't amazing, but he kind of got screwed over on his strategy with that caution coming out. Other than that, he was one of the better cars on the track and running near the front. So if I had to pick between Chastain, Busch, and Bowman, I think as of right now, I'm going to lean Alex Bowman. Just showed me some more speed in practice, which I feel more comfortable with. And I just trust Hendrick a little bit more. Bubba Wallace, almost on the pole. Kyle Larson got him by 100th of a second, which is funny based off of what we saw last week. Maybe some more karma for Bubba Wallace, but I was really hoping he wasn't going to be on the pole because it just creates a whole discussion. Do I play Bubba Wallace on the pole? Does he lead the first stage? I was leaning towards, well, kind of hard to trust him to do that, but now that he's not starting on the pole, and I feel like Kyle Larson's the answer to lead the laps early on, it makes it a bit of an easier discussion. But he had one of the best cars in practice. He was in Group A, but top 3, top 5 across the board. For the most part, long run trailed off a little bit. It's similar to the guy above him, Bowman, at Richmond. The result really doesn't reflect how much speed he had. He ran very well at Richmond, but that final caution with 2 laps left, had a very bad pit stop, ended up screwing over his day. Problem is, I think he moves back. Briscoe will be good, I think, in this race. Josh Berry will be good. They offer some more place differential upside. It wouldn't surprise me if they all finish pretty close to each other, but in that case, I'll just take the couple extra PD spots here. So while Bubba I don't think is a bad play, if he can steal fast laps and finish in the top 6, it's viable for tournaments, but he's going to have something happen to pretty much all these guys right here. So it's a tough path for Bubba. He's not a cross out though, but I prefer the SHR cars above him. Chase Briscoe starting in 5th. I love him at short flat tracks. Looking at his history at Martinsville, has 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s and some of the overall best numbers. And while Bubba has not been bad, 2 top 10s, the problem is starting in second. I mean, you have to have a bit of a ceiling day for Bubba here. So I think Briscoe and Barry grade out just a little bit better. Barry was insanely good at Richmond last week, shot right to the front and was able to stay there for the most part. I mean, faded off a little bit at the end, but I mean, SHR at these short flat tracks tend to do very well. Ryan Priest, 22nd, very fast early on in practice, faded off a little bit, but this is a good track for him. I think Ryan Priest will definitely be in play. And over on FanDuel, he's really cheap at $6,200. And if you're looking at his Martinsville numbers in the next gen era, running position of 12.4, really good drive rating, and finished in the top 20 both times. And was also able to lead some laps last year. Then I think he had a penalty, which kind of took him out of contention. But I think Priest will be fast, and then Noah Gregson also I think should be decent as well. I mean, the 7K range looks really good, but these SHR cars all lined up in a row are all going to be viable in my opinion. Daniel Suarez starting in 21st, just nothing to really be too excited about, I don't think. Austin Dillon starting in 28th. I don't really like Kyle Busch, RCR car, and Austin Dillon's way worse of a talent than Kyle Busch. I'm not seeing much to want to play Austin Dillon. Eric Jones in 17th, another guy that just really not going to be too excited about. I like him at the larger tracks, some of those larger ovals. Looking at his numbers at Martinsville, next gen era 4 race sample size, has 1 top 15 and 2 top 20s. Just not really seeing much to really want to make me play Eric Jones. John Nemechek also pretty slow, his teammate. Austin Cindric, I mean, Penske cars tend to be fast at these track types. I need to see what group he was in. Austin Cindric was in the first group, so maybe those numbers are a little bit inflated. I don't think he's going to be terrible. If you're ever going to play Austin Cindric, these are the kind of tracks you want to do it, or road courses. 4 race sample size for him here, usually around 20th place, basically on his averages for average finish and average running position. And that kind of backs it up with the short flat track numbers as well. So I think he'll probably move back a little bit. Like, I don't really want to play Austin Cindric, but I think he could potentially do worse because people are going to go lap down early on. And if the high starting position helps him stay on the lead lap a little bit longer, that could be the saving grace for him. Michael McDowell, $6,300, starting in 35th. The fast laps saved your day last week because he was a little bit off strategy, and then the caution kind of screwed him over as well. But he was really fast in practice last week, and then he was just one of the absolute worst cars in the field for quite some time last weekend, so that was a little bit surprising. I know he's historically not that great at these shorter flat tracks. Martinsville, usually a 20th place car in the next gen era so far. I think he'll be able to move up from 35th, and he's really cheap, so I mean, if you want to play McDowell just because of the price point, I get it. He's going to get some extra PD spots there. Not excited about McDowell, but he's just one of those guys. If you want to fit in the expensive plays, I think you do a heck of a lot worse than Michael McDowell in 35th. Todd Gillen. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to play Todd Gillen, but honestly, his cars look pretty good. He was in Group A, though, so these numbers are a bit inflated, but like Austin Cindric, the high track position might be able to help him stay in the lead lap longer, so he's just a fringe tournament play. Like, I'm playing single entry. Do I really want to click on Todd Gillen? Probably not, but if you are doing multiple lineups, I don't think you X him out. Ricky Stenhouse, not too excited about that. Carson Hocevar, starting in 25th. I'll be honest, I just don't really see too many. Right, I don't want to go over every single guy. That's just no fun for these cheap plays. But just eyeballing it here, I'm not playing David Starr. Don't really see a reason to play Josh Williams, just extremely slow. Daniel Hemrick starting in 36. His practice speeds were a little bit better, but I believe he was in that first group here. So those numbers are, one of the worst cars in Group A. So I feel like those numbers are certainly inflated a little bit. I don't think it'll be a top 25 car. Gralla, don't see any interest there. Harrison Burton, maybe. He'll be starting in 34th and kind of a Penske car, but I mean, Burton's just absolutely awful these days. And he was in Group A, and he wasn't the worst car in Group A at the very least, but I could see maybe getting to some Burton. Haley was slow, but extra track position, maybe it helps him out a little bit. But other than that, I mean, Corey LaJoie might be the one that gets the ownership starting in 32nd because of his extremely fast practice speeds. Keep in mind, he was in Group A, but people are going to look at that, and the ownership will be inflated a little bit. I don't think there's really any standout plays. Once you go below Michael McDowell will be chalky just because of the starting position. But other than that, you were just mixing and matching for the most part, because I think if anybody told you they had a really strong lean on any of these guys, I feel like they'd be lying to you. With that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. So I hope you did enjoy. If you did, make sure you like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. If you want to check out all the extra content over on Patreon, you know where to find it. Link can be found down below. And if you want to enter the comment contest to win some money, all you gotta do is comment down below who you think is going to score the most fantasy points and how many. The winner will get a cash prize. Hopefully, I'll see you all in the live stream tomorrow afternoon. Wish you all the best, and I'll see you all next time.